It is August 17th, 2024, and the real estate world is coming to an end. Everything is crashing. All realtors are going to be out of business today. No, I'm just kidding. Depending on when you're watching this, August 17th has either come or gone. And that was the drop dead date on all of the commission lawsuit nonsense. And on this video, I'm going to talk about what this all means for you as a buyer and as a seller, what has changed, all of the frequently asked questions, and all of the myths surrounding all of the stuff that is going on. Let's go. Okay, so for today's video, and today's video only, I am going to put my former real estate attorney hat on. I don't have a hat today, but just imagine it. I'm putting my real estate attorney hat on, which I used to be a long time ago, and I'm gonna go through what's going on with all of this realtor stuff, how it affects you or doesn't affect you, and a lot of the frequently asked questions that I've been getting from people just like you about everything that's happening, and really what it means for you now in the new world of home buying and home selling. Does it really matter? Does it really have an impact? Is it really going to affect home prices? Is it going to affect commission rates? Are you now going to be paying less? Are you going to be paying more? What is the deal? Those are all of the things that I'm going to talk about today. All right, now in order to do this properly, I have to go back in time a little bit and just explain how the system worked before today. Again, depending on when you're watching this could have been months ago or a year ago, whenever. But before August 17th, here's how it works. So you, Mr. Home Seller, decide to sell your home and you call me, your favorite real estate broker, Danny B, and you say, hey, come on over and list my house, which, by the way, I love to do. I love helping people just like you with your sale of your home, with the purchase of a home. So give me a call. All the links are down below. I'm happy to help you anywhere in the world, really, because I have agents in my group everywhere. So I live in Dallas. If you're here, I'd love to work with you. I also have a team in LA, Miami, and all different places of the country and internationally. So anyway, reach out. That being said, you call me, you want to list your house. Here's how it goes. I meet with you before today, and I say, okay, look, the real estate brokerage fee is going to be 6%. By the way, commissions have never been fixed by law. They have always been something that is a business practice for every real estate agent and every brokerage. So always, it has never been a fixed number. I'm just using 6% as an example. Don't sue me. Bear with me here. So I come over and I go, hey, it's going to cost you 6% in real estate brokerage fees. Those are paid at the end of the transaction as a contingency fee, meaning they're only paid when we sell your house. You don't have to pay anything up front. There's no cash out of pocket. It's taken out of the proceeds, and then we move forward. It's always been this way, or at least for the last 100 years or 20 years that I've been in the business. Anyhow, of the 6%, what I would say prior to today being August 17th, 2024, is that I will share half of that or whatever number we decide with the cooperating agent that brings the buyer. So in this case, let's just say, hypothetically, I'm going to share 3% of the 6% with the agent that brings the buyer. And then that 3% number was published in the multiple listing service saying that any agent that brings a buyer will receive a 3% cooperating agent commission. It's been that way for a very long time. It was a very efficient system and everything was fine. Well, lo and behold, a little while ago, several groups of people, and really not people, but I'm going to say several groups of lawyers, because that's really who made money in this, let's be honest, sued the National Association of Realtors, which is kind of like the real estate trade union, I would say. And what they said is that this practice is price fixing, in that, brokers are all colluding to set the commission, and that by having the buyer broker commission set up front, what it's doing is it's artificially inflating home prices. They sued the National Association of Realtors, as well as a bunch of brokerages, actually settled the case in historic settlements, lots of money, most of which went to the attorneys, of course. And the settlement had a couple of different parts, which I'm going to get into. But first, I really want to dispel this myth that having the commission structured the way it used to be structured inflated home prices. Here's the deal, guys. We live in a free market economy, if you're watching this in the United States of America or any free market country. And in a free market, prices are set by the market, by the sellers, by the buyers, and by supply and demand. Real estate prices are not set by the fee charged by a broker. Whether a broker decided to charge 1% or a flat fee or 5% or 10%, whatever, it didn't matter. That does not dictate the final selling price of the home. The final selling price of a home is dictated by the supply and demand, the way that the transaction is handled by the listing agent and the buyer's agent, the way that the deal is negotiated, how all of the problems are solved, and even before that, how a home is priced, how it's marketed, how it's shown, and how it's presented to the market. Those are all of the things that impact how much that house, I was going to say that product, how much that house will sell for. I was going to give you an analogy, right? So realtor commissions never impacted home sales, nor will they impact home sales in the future, although I can make an argument that under the new rules, home prices will actually go up and commissions could actually go up, and I'm going to explain why in just a second. So anyway, back to my example. So that's the way it used to happen. So after the lawsuit and after the settlement, there are a couple of main things that the National Association of Realtors settled and agreed to, and here are the changes that you really need to know about as either a seller or a buyer. Okay, number one change, and actually this is a good one. Number one change is that buyers must now sign a buyer representation agreement in order to look at property. So in the past, if you met with an agent, if you came to me and said, hey, well, not me, because I'm going to tell you how I used to do it and I've always done it and will continue to do it. But if you came to a normal, standard agent and said, I want to go see a house, they would just take you to see the house, usually, okay? Now, professional real estate agents never really did it that way. And in fact, when I left being an attorney and started being a real estate broker, I read all the contracts, and I remember seeing a buyer agent form, and I've always used that. With all of my clients, with all of my buyers, doesn't matter who it is, they sign a buyer representation agreement. And that's because that agreement always laid out the fundamental relationship. It laid out the fiduciary duty. It laid out the responsibilities of the parties, and I always enjoyed that. I thought that was a good thing. Come to understand when I was in the business for just a little bit that most agents don't do that. They would just go out and show homes. So the first change that the settlement did, and again, this is a good one, is that now you have to sign a contract. Now, one of the myths I've heard is, you can't even go to an open house and see a home. That's nonsense. Yes, you can go to an open house, but if an agent is going to tour a property with you, then you have to sign an agreement. Now, that could just be a one-day showing agreement. It could be an agreement exclusive to that property. It could be a 1 week agreement, a 1 month, a 6 month, whatever that is. Now, the proper way to do this, the proper way that a real estate agent should show you property is that they should do a consultation, okay? They should explain the home buying process in detail. Then you should sign a representation agreement if you're comfortable with that agent, and then you should go out and tour properties. That's the way we've always done it in my real estate group, and that's the way we'll continue to do it. Of course, there are other agents who don't, but this is one of the things that I think is a good change. Now, any agent that does not do that doesn't have you sign an agreement is going to be in violation of the new rules, and they could be subject to fines and penalties. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm just going to find someone that doesn't want to abide by the rules, well, that's fine, but just realize that person is putting his or her real estate license on the line. Not a good thing. So that's the first change. The second change is that cooperating broker commission that I talked about that was in the multiple listing service is gone. No more. So it will not be published. And in fact, it's already been that way for probably a week or 2 weeks, or maybe other multiple listing services for a while. And so what that means in practice is that now when a seller lists the property, so again, we're going to go back to the beginning. You come to me and you say, hey, I want to list my home, Danny. Okay, great. We'll list your home. My fee is, for example, 3%. That's it. We are no longer putting a buyer broker commission in the multiple listing service. Now, one of the other myths that I've heard, and this is a big one, is, well, can a seller now not pay a buyer broker commission? Yes, they can. A seller can still pay a buyer broker concession to the buyer agent. It just cannot be advertised in the multiple listing service. It can be advertised elsewhere, and it must be a concession that is paid by the seller, not by the listing agent. So we are talking a little bit of semantics here, but at the end of the day, the seller is able to pay that. They just can't publicize it on the multiple listing service. So why? What was the reason for that change? Well, I want to talk about the case just a little bit, not to get too legal on you. Again, I'm putting on my legal hat, but I'm doing this in total layman's terms, okay? So what the attorney said and what that case was all about was that a lot of it had to do with steering, and that was that agents were not showing properties that were offering lower commission. So for example, when an agent looks in the multiple listing service before today, they would see, hey, some properties are offering 3%, some are offering 4%, some are offering 2%. And what they alleged some agents would do, and hey, maybe this happened, we never did this, but maybe agents did this, is that they would not show properties that were offering less commission. So if there's a, let's say a for sale by owner that says, hey, I'm not offering any buyer broker commission. Okay, well, I'm just not going to show that house to my buyer because I'm not going to get paid. That has now all gone away for that reason, and so now it doesn't show that in the multiple listing service. So what this is going to do, though, and what it's already done, in my opinion, and what I've seen just in the last couple of months, is that it is causing mass confusion, not only in the industry amongst real estate agents, but also amongst sellers and buyers, because you probably have a ton of questions about this. You're not sure what to do if you're a seller. What do you do if you're a buyer? What's going to happen? And so now let's get into the nuts and bolts of how it's going to work. So if you're a buyer now and you meet with a buyer agent, you might be thinking, and you might be asking yourself, well, how is that agent going to get paid? What's going to happen? Do I have to pay them? And here is the reality. So there's a couple of ways that transactions can now be structured. The first way is that the seller is still offering a cooperating agent commission, and I personally believe that that is what's going to happen in, probably 90% of cases, that nothing's going to change, okay? That I, as a buyer agent, let's say I represent you, I'm going to call the listing agent and I'm going to say, hey, we like this house, we're ready to make an offer. By the way, is the seller paying a concession to the buyer broker? And they're going to say yes, they're paying X, and I'm going to say great. I'm going to put it on a form and I'm going to submit the offer. Nothing has changed. Now, are there going to be cases where the seller is either offering a lower commission or not offering a commission at all? Yes, there are. What's going to happen in those cases? Well, one of two things. Number one is that compensation can be structured in the transaction, which could inflate the price, right? Because let's say there are 5 offers and, we say, okay, look, we want to build that compensation into the price. Well, we may need to raise the price in order to build it in. Number two, the buyer could pay that concession directly. So the buyer could go, okay, your fee is, buyer agent, let's say, for example, 3%. We're going to go ahead and pay that either in the transaction or we'll write you a check or whatever. I think that is going to be a very, very small percentage of transactions because let's face it, most buyers simply don't have an extra 2 or 3% to pay their agent in the transaction. It's cash out of pocket or a closing cost. It makes it very challenging. So I don't believe that that's going to happen very, very often, but it could, technically speaking. In the majority of cases, that is simply going to get built into the transaction and it's going to get structured into the deal. Now, one of the questions that I've been getting is how does this affect the loan? Because, with loans, there are limits on concessions. You can't give as many concessions as you want. There are limits, and so you're going to have to get your lender involved even sooner. And for that reason, when you are a buyer and you're working with a real estate agent, it is so critical and so important that the lender is involved from the very beginning because, back in the day when this wasn't an issue, you could have qualified and you could have been good. But now, for example, if you need to build a commission in, then the lender needs to be aware of it and they need to understand how that loan is going to be structured. So that is the 30,000-foot view, the gist of it, of how these new rules are going to work. So bottom line, let me give you the cut and dry. If you are a seller, okay, What you need to know is that the buyer agent compensation is no longer going to be on the multiple listing service, but you can still pay a buyer agent commission, whatever number you want. It's not fixed. You can offer that, and your agent can advertise that and can market it. They just can't do that on the multiple listing service. If you are a buyer, what you need to understand is that you should shop around even more vigorously for real estate services. There's going to be lots of models out there. Agents are going to pivot, charge different ways. So you want to understand what value you're getting from your real estate agent, what fee they charge, how they're going to work with you, what they're going to be doing. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of discount agents out there that start charging less, that say, hey, I'll charge you a flat fee to just let you in the house, whatever that might be. There's going to be full service agents that do it the right way, like myself, right? So there's going to be all kinds of different models out there now in the new world of real estate. So as a buyer, you really want to be cautious. You want to understand the rules and understand that, yes, you do need to be under representation in order to see a house. Yes, you can still go to an open house whenever you want. And really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, there's not a lot that is going to change in terms of the actual end result. At the end of the day, some states have been doing it this way for a long time. Commercial real estate transactions and also for sale by owners and off-market properties have been sold this way for a very long time. Those commissions have not been published, right? They've just been done broker to broker, seller to broker, whatever that looks like. And so that part is not changing at all. But it is super critical to not only understand the rules, but to also understand all of the myths and all of the misinformation that is out there about what's going on. For example, I'm going to give you one other one. I've heard, people say, oh, well, as a seller, I don't have to offer any commission. I can just charge the same price. Well, think about it. It's not really going to work that way, because that commission needs to come from somewhere. And so if a buyer is not willing to pay it, they're just going to build it into the contract and build it into the offer. So it's going to come out of the price anyway. So there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. And my goal is to make sure that you know exactly what's going on. So again, if you're a seller, if you're thinking of selling your house, if you're thinking of moving or relocating, perhaps to Dallas or LA or Miami or wherever, I am so excited to chat with you. I love helping people just like you and talking to people just like you. All of the links are down below. You can call, text, email, or you can book a Zoom consultation directly with our group through the link in the description below. So I hope you found this informative. Let me know what comments and questions you have about the new rules. I'm happy to answer those and go through anything else that you might have in more specifics. This is a topic that I am really passionate about. Being a former attorney, it's something that, I think it's critical for consumers to understand. Our industry is, filled with misinformation, with, people not being educated on the subject. And so I love talking about it. Happy to talk about it anytime. And we will, of course, get back to the awesome property tours on this channel. In fact, the biggest video on the channel right now is this one right here, touring the Bentley residences in Miami. This is also the most fun I've had touring property. Go check out that video, and I'll see you on the next one.